All right. Hey, welcome everybody. First thing I want you to do is think about a bad experience you had at school with a teacher. Now, I'm going to ask if you have one that you want to share. I'm going to ask you to share, if you will. Please leave out names. Some of you are enough that you still have a teacher. But just think of one. We're not going to camp out with a bad experience for this whole session because we don't want to go that way. But I think we've probably all had a bad experience in school, and we didn't feel like we want to be there anymore. We kind of hide from them, and that teacher still maybe brought to our minds. We're like, oh no. Mm-hmm. So if you just think about that for a few minutes, and I am going to share one with you of my own, and I'll ask you if you want to. Not everybody, but if somebody that wants to open up and share and say, yeah, here's what's happening. Here's how it made me feel. So just take a minute and think about that. All right. Before I share, anybody want to share one that you had? Remember, don't use names. We don't want to do that. Yes. Uh huh. Yeah, yeah. Pretty severe. Never forgot that, huh? Anybody else want to share? Yes, ma'am. Okay. Hmm. Embarrassing, man. Yes. So for me, mine was actually one of the worst ones for me was in college, and I'll get a little bit of my background just in just a second. But it was my last semester before I started student teaching. And then I would graduate, and I had a professor, and there was a paper that was due that day, and I had went in. There was something else I hadn't turned in prior to, and it was the second time, and he said, Mr. Jones, I need to talk to you. So he pulled me outside the class, but just imagine this door, and you're all right here. And the door stays open. We never leave the doorway. He begins to berate me. And I'm an adult at this point, in front of all of my peers I've took a lot of classes with. We're all about to graduate. And, I've never forgot that moment. But here's the thing. He never asked me, why don't you have your assignment? Why did you miss this? Is there something going on? Is there any way I can help you? Instead, he threatened me with academic probation. I had all A's. I had never been in trouble at the school. He made me come to, and I lived quite a bit away, and I was commuting at the time from the university I was going to, and made me turn in my paper on a Saturday at his office, and he did all that. But what he didn't ask me was the night before, and I was engaged to be married at the time, but the night before, the girl I was engaged to told me that she didn't know if she wanted to go through with the engagement. So you can imagine, I decided not to do the paper. I was distraught. I was broken down. If he'd asked me that one thing, but I wasn't going to make an excuse and tell him either. He said, well, why are you starting off with this story? We're talking about reaching children with special needs, because really what I want to talk about today is the biggest part of all of this, and then you can get further in the nuts and bolts of how to reach kiddos that have special needs. But we first got to understand, and if that man that day would have took a minute to try to understand what I was actually going through, he could have still given me a bad grade because I had a responsibility and I didn't meet it. But I think he would have probably had a different heart of way he approached me, and I've never forgotten that. Same for you, same for you. And if anything that you probably thought of. So just to tell you a little bit about myself, that's me and my family. That picture's a couple years old. I am a full-time pastor, but I've only been a full-time pastor since July 1st. Before July 1st, I was bivocational. And I was bivocational as an educator. I have been, my undergrad is special education, and then my master's is educational leadership. So I have been a special ed teacher. I have been an elementary school principal, 3 different places, 3 different times. I've been a director of exceptional education for a couple of years as well. So my background is education, mainly and mostly. So I say that. Do we have any educators in here, former educators? Okay. Oh, good. Quite a few. So y'all can help me. If I start speaking educational jargon and lingo, because there's a lot of it, just raise your hand and say, buddy, I don't know what you're talking about. Could you explain that? And we'll be okay. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of my background. And that girl that I talked about, well, she's my wife now. We were both young. She just got cold feet. Everything worked out just fine. We got 2 great kids, Christian and Chloe. Chloe is a senior and Christian is a sophomore, and they both go to different high schools just to make life interesting. So that's a little bit about me and give you my background and where we're coming from in this session. So I want you to look at this picture. If you are an educator, you've seen this picture in education circles. We use it quite a bit. But I just want you to think for a minute. And just what's some things you notice about these 2 pictures side by side here, and then after I'll give you a second just to process, and then if you just want to talk to some people around you. I'm an introvert by nature. God had a sense of humor and said, you know what, I'm going to make you a teacher where you're up teaching all the time, and a preacher where you're up preaching all the time, and yet I like being alone. And in a setting like this, I'm usually the one sitting in the back like, I don't want to talk to anybody. So I'm not going to force you to talk, but just think in your head and just participate in that way. We'll be fine. And then in a minute, if you want to share what some things you notice with somebody sitting beside you, please feel free to do that. But go ahead and take a minute and what do you notice? Anything. Maybe differences. Just take a minute first to think about it, and then we'll answer out loud, okay? Yeah. Go ahead.
Little boy on the bottom.
Yeah.
First side, left side. He's trying to look. He's not happy. And everybody else is cheering, but he's not. And then you put him over here and put him a box of step on. Now he can see, and they're all cheering. They're all happy.
Yeah. What else? Did some of you agree with that?
Yeah,
But
but I see on one picture everybody's at different levels, and then on the second picture they're all at the same level.
good notice. Yeah, like both of those. What else? Anything else? Yes, ma'am. The boxes are level on one, the kids are level on the other. Yes, sir.
I take away that some kids are going to need extra things to get them to where they can go in front of them.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So we need 2 boxes to get to the same
Equal access.
Yes, ma'am. Equal access. Very good. Very good. And the idea I want you to take from this is fair is not always equal. Fair is not always equal. And this is not going to be, some of these things that we're talking about, and it says strategies and things like this, but really it's just, this whole session will be about understanding. Because if we can't get to the point to make you realize fair is not always equal for students with disabilities, for kids with disabilities, then we've missed the boat. Because we see here, is very aptly pointed out by everyone that spoke here, there's equal there boxes according to what they're given, but then you got this poor little guy, and all he's looking at is wood, you know? But then over here, he's given the ability and given the resources to rise above so that he can have equal access as his peers. And when we're trying to reach kids with special needs, whether it's the Good News Club, whether it's out in this world today, whether it's in schools. We need to realize that fair isn't always equal. And that's important because, when I'm dealing with my children, I don't love one more than the other. And I don't want to make a difference in that way. But the way I approach them is different. I have a daughter and I have a son. And so it would be ridiculous, but you see somebody that's in a wheelchair and they're handicapped and they're paralyzed from the waist down. And a kid come up and says, well, why do they get wheels? I don't have wheels. I want wheels too. Well, that would be ridiculous. But nobody says that because you're thankful that you can walk. And some people don't have that ability. Well, it would be ridiculous to say that. They're getting what they need. So what we need to understand is we're dealing with students with disabilities or special needs, and we're trying to reach them in these clubs. We need to provide ways for them to get what they need. And fair isn't always equal. And we're going to talk about some of those things. And so, because in our hearts sometimes we think, well, I'm not doing this for that one. I can't do it for this one. Well, let's just take a student with a visual impairment. They have a hard time seeing. Well, if I have a student with a visual impairment and I'm writing notes on the board and I put them in the very back, and then I say, you know what, I'm going to let you sit right here from now on so that you can see the board clearly. And there's another kid that has great eyesight. And they say, well, Mr. Jones, you don't let me sit up front. I'll say, well, Timmy, can you see the board from where you're sitting? Well, yes, sir. Well, Susie can. She needs to move up here so that she can see clearly what we're doing. So that's what we're talking about, that fair isn't always equal, but it's giving every student the opportunity to have success. It's giving every kid. So when you're in the club, whatever you can do to position a kid so that they can hear the good news of the gospel, so that they can participate, that they feel welcome and a part of the club, the better they are that they're going to participate and be a part of that, rather than the story or talk about of embarrassment. And so I want to move to this next activity. And a lot of this is going to try a little bit today to try to put you in the shoes of a student that has a disability, okay? So I have two sides here, and so I don't have probably enough for everybody, so if you want to work with somebody on this, how many of you have a pen? Or who does not have one, needs one? And you can work with somebody next to you if you want. So if you could, just hold, don't work it out yet. These are anagrams. You guys all want to work together, or you want more? Okay? These are anagrams. This is, of course, words, and you're going to re-scramble them to make a new word. Everybody understand how to do that? Okay? Y'all both want one? Just one or two? One. Huh? She don't want to work with you, bud. All right. All right. Y'all work together? Can y'all work together? Thank y'all. There you go. I think we have enough for each individual here. All right, so don't solve them yet. Don't solve them yet. Don't solve them yet. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do the first one first, and when you figured out the first one, remember you're just re-scrambling to make a new word. All right, shouldn't be too hard. When you get the first one, stop and just raise your hand. Okay, here we go. Ready? Go ahead and let's do the first one. When you get it, raise your hand so everybody can see. This side's going pretty quick here. It shouldn't be too hard. Just go ahead. All right, no, you know what? Go ahead. I think they probably had a little bit longer time to look at it. So let's go to the second one. Let's go to the second one. When you get it, raise your hand. When you figure it out, oh, we got some over here already. Oh, man. These guys. Nobody over here yet? Nobody over here yet? Okay. Okay, let's just go ahead. Let's move to the third one. Move to the third one. Move to the third one. Might be a little bit harder. This one might be a little bit harder. It can make a word, I promise. The third one. Got one over here, all right? All right, I want everybody to stop. Okay. I just want y'all to know something. I love y'all. I don't know you, but I love you. Don't be mad at me. I set you up. You have two different lists. They have 3 different words than you do, except for the last word, and everybody has the same last word. Some of you didn't get it. It was hard for me too, but it's American. You can switch it up, make it American. Right? All right, over here, what was your first word? It was 8, and you could make it to what? T. You're like, that's not on my list. Number 2, lemon, you could make it what? Melon, right? And you're looking at your list, and they had whirl and slapstick. Well, guess what? It's impossible. You can't. That's why I said I love y'all. Don't be mad at me. But so how did y'all, anybody that wants to speak out, how did you feel when I said, when you get the first one, raise your hand, and you start saying everybody over here is raising their hand. How did that make you feel in that moment? Frustrated? Anything else? I'm an idiot. Yeah. And did it bother you that this group over here was seemingly getting it? And you wasn't, right? Okay, so what about by the time you got to the last word, and I was like, let's do it again. Be honest. How many of you just like, I'm not even going to look? Did you? Yeah. So why do I do this? It's something that's called learned helplessness. And I said that too. But it's not only a student with a disability or a special need, all of us can end up here as we just figured out. But what a student with a special need has learned over time, and they'll be all in your clubs. They've been at school all day long fighting, and they have maybe a visual impairment, maybe they have attention problems, and they've not been learning all day long because they get distracted or it's hard, or maybe they have dyslexia and it's hard to read and they're burnt out from being there all day. Then you come into this club and they've just got used to it. I'm not going to know how to do any of this stuff because I don't never know how to do any of it. So guess what? They learn to give up. Just like you on that third one. You just saw how it happened. You're all adults. Some of you, I bet, do word searches and are real good with words and puzzles. And you're like, what's going on? I'm usually the best at this, right? But by the third one, you had already given up within a few minutes. Oh, you guys are feeling pretty good about yourself. You're like, hey, I don't know what's going on this side of the room, but it must be the sun shining on us here. But understanding that students that have special needs, many times they face that all through their life, and they've learned to become helpless. Now, I want to point something out to us and helping us understand this, but there's also a spectrum that we can find ourselves on. And as we try to come to a place where we just love on these kiddos, sometimes we can be, oh, bless their heart, poor little baby. And then on the other end of the spectrum is, you know what? If they just had a good whooping, they wouldn't act that way. Right? There's a spectrum of that. So what we don't need to do is that every child that has a special need just say, bless their heart, because guess what? If you just say, oh, that poor baby, they can't do anything, that's your expectation for them, and they'll meet it. And next thing that you'll have is that student will be relying on you for everything, and they're not really getting anything because you're doing it for them. And you'll do it out of a good heart. But then there's the other end of the spectrum, like, well, you know what? There ain't nothing wrong with that kid. They're just mean. Well, then you set up an expectation for that child as well, and you sometimes will ignore them. You won't engage with them. You won't love them. But you know what? Maybe that child is acting that way because they're trying to get out of what you're asking them to do. And so, we're understanding that fair's not equal, that kids can develop a learned helplessness that can cause them to act this way. Now, don't call it out if you see this one. I'm going to do another one, okay? Now remember, I might role play a little bit here. Don't get mad at me. I'm only being an actor. I'm not mean, okay? But just to get this activity, all right. If you know what this picture is, raise your hand. Do not call it out. Do you see anything in this picture? If you do, raise your hand. Okay, if anybody can see this picture and what it is and figure it out, I'll tell you what. I'll make sure that Good News Club gets you dinner tonight somewhere. A steak, whatever you want. Still, nobody? Come on, guys. Come on. Now, wait a minute. If you don't know what it is, now, y'all's not paying attention. Y'all are not trying hard enough. Look harder at that picture and tell me what it is. If you don't, then you're not getting out of here till 4 o'clock today.
Panda bear,
Huh?
panda bear.
No, good guess though. But did you see what I was doing? So many times we do the same thing. We start out with a bribe, as if they're just not trying. And many times a student with disability or a special need, maybe it's the way their visual perception and they can't distinguish, and what seems obvious, right now it's obvious to me. I've seen it so much. When I first seen this picture, I couldn't figure out what it was either. So don't worry. I'm like, I don't know what that is. But once I seen it, I couldn't unsee it. Does that make sense? But some things have become so obvious to us that we're like, well, why don't you see it? And then we think we push that onto the kid. And we're saying, you're just not trying hard enough. And then we try to bribe. You know, if I was trying to bribe you, I'll give you $50. And I'm glad nobody really called me on that. Would have been in trouble. I went to Dr. Scott Jones and be like, hey, I promised somebody $50. I didn't think they'd get the answer right, and they did. But that doesn't work. But why? Because they can't do it. They're not seeing it. They don't have the ability. But then we go to scolding. Well, why can't you get it? You're not, and we just progress. Well, the problem is it's not there. So our approach in understanding, hey, this kid's not playing. They're not just trying to be difficult. They really don't see it. Now, I'm going to show you, and I'll show it side by side. This is going to be outlined, and maybe you can see it now. You can see it once you see this.
I thought of a cow again.
Did you? Everybody see it now? There they are side by side, so you can see it's a cow. Now, you can't unsee it now, can you? It was right there staring you in the face the whole time, right? But now that we can see it, it's hard to unsee it, and it's very obvious. So there's things that for us, because a disability can affect, especially a mental disability or learning disability, can affect a kid in how they perceive the world, how they interact with the world, and all these different things, so that something that seems obvious to us is very difficult for them. So providing that access is understanding and trying to have an understanding and getting to know the kid, sitting down and talking to them. When you see a kid off to the side, because here's one of the things that we face going into a Good News Club that an educator does not face. If you're an educator, if a student has an IEP, and that's an individualized education plan, if they have an IEP, that means the state has determined they have a disability and they need special services in the school so that they can have that same access to learning as everybody else. Well, in the Good News Club, nobody's going to walk in and say, this kid has an IEP. And they're going to tell you what their disability is. They can't. Legally, they cannot tell us those things. So for us, we don't need to try to go around and say, let's see, what's wrong with you? But we can start to see different things in the way that we're interacting with kids, getting really to know the kiddos, and in order to help them so that they can enjoy the club, like coming to the club, and that we can also reach them with the gospel. Okay? So, I'm speaking faster than I thought I would. So, we'll actually probably get a little bit early. But remember, fair is not always equal. Fair is not always equal. There will be students that we need to give an extra crate to. Can we say that? There'll be students or kiddos that we need to give an extra crate to so that they can enjoy the club, they can enjoy the activity, they can receive the gospel, and hopefully give their life to Jesus, because we've took the time to know who they are. We took the time to love on them. We've took the time to understand them and their situation. Now, some things that we can do in an educational world we call accommodations and modifications. So when you're in that club, there's things that you can do, and one I've already talked about, like preferential seating. That's just giving them the spot in the what if you're in a classroom, sometimes it might be a lunchroom, sometimes it might be an auditorium. It's whatever the school is willing to give us to present and to have our Good News Club. It can be in many different locations. Well, arranging that location so that it's good for each kiddo. And so, preferential seating, I give the example of a student with a visual impairment setting up front so they can see, but sometimes it might not always be a visual impairment, or it might be physically, but sometimes a kid might need to sit in the back. Sometimes a kid might need to sit in the middle. Remember, especially many times, a kid with a learning disability or a special need, not every time, but a lot of times, some of those kids end up being behavior problems as well. Why do you think that is? Why do you think a student with a disability, and it doesn't mean every student, or a special need, could end up being a behavior problem? What do you think might cause that? Communications. They can't communicate their wants and needs many times. Absolutely. Go ahead, one over here. Frustration. Shut down, bored. Absolutely. Any other thoughts? Sensory. Yes.
I'm that way, so I understand it when it is.
Yeah, you might have heard me. I went to shut the door and I said, because I'm distractible. I'm one of those people. I have to have a room by myself. I usually play like classical music or something to like focus in, because I'm kind of like a squirrel. So I understand that part. I'm very distractible, so I have to have quiet and stuff to be able to study and do things like that. And so so sensory issues. We could have communication issues, and it's very difficult if you can't communicate your wants or needs, and you can see that. Also avoidance. That learned helplessness, and that they've learned to be, like, I can't do it. What's it even matter? Well, then, instead of me calling you to ask a question, if I can just cause a disruption and get out of the whole mess, you think, well, that's negative. You're getting negative attention. Does not matter. It's attention. And I'm getting out of what you're asking me to do. Because we all know there's situations that might have been in here right now, or even today, that they've had you to get up and say something or do something. You're like, I don't want to do that. What can I do to get out of this? And kids will do that. And a lot of times they will use behavior to get out of that. One thing that you can do, this is just a few little tidbits for you to think about in this, is help a kid be successful. And you can do that. Maybe there's a kid and you just see them, they've always kind of been to the back. They've never answered any questions, never been involved in any way. And maybe before the club starts, you say, hey, Timothy, I'm going to ask a question to start class today. And it's going to be about this. And you tell them the question, do you know the answer to that? And they might say, well, no, not really. And you explain a little bit more. You say, well, I'm going to tell you, it's about Moses. So when I come and I'm going to ask this question, I'm going to ask you. And when I ask you this question, what's the answer? And they say, Moses. And they're like, okay. So you get up there, you start the club, and you say, and I have a question today. And Timothy, what do you think the answer? And you ask the question, and you've allowed Timothy to be successful in front of his peers. So now he has some confidence. And that's also going to help you build some rapport with Timothy, because you're the one that helped Timothy be successful. And that can help, giving some prompting like that. Proximity is always a good thing. And especially if you're starting to deal with behavior issues or something, always coming and standing in front of somebody and directing attention, or a student that has attention problems, coming over and just kind of getting in front of them. And you don't have to say their name, but just being right there. Of course, I think the Good News Club is designed in a way that it's going to be very engaging for most students. The songs, the movements, just like this morning was doing the Word Up. Wonderful ways to help us engage all kids. Because one of the things about students with disabilities is a lot of it is the engagement and keeping them engaged, because they have learned to be helpless. They have not had access and equal access as everyone else has, because I can't access it. They're not giving me an extra crate to say over the fence, so I'm going to quit. I don't understand it when I do get it, so I'm going to quit. And so it's just bringing them in, understanding and trying to help them and giving them accommodations talk about reduced distractions for them, and we talk about sensory issues. And sometimes there truly are kids with autism that have sensory issues. And understanding that, and that's where we get on the spectrum of, oh, bless their heart, that sweet baby just can't do nothing, to there ain't nothing wrong with that kid. We just need to whoop them. There are kids that get overwhelmed. I have a boy in my church, and there's sometimes I get on him. He's also family, so I can get on him. And I say, you need to sit down and you need to quit that. Quit wandering around. And then there's other times, it was at our VBS this year, and I saw him, I could tell his face. He was having a sensory overload. Too much stuff, too much noise, too many people, and he was about to have a meltdown. When he has a meltdown, he'll go to hitting people and all kinds of stuff. And I went to him. I said,
earphones on him?
He has some, yes. And so I come to him, I said, buddy, you having a hard time? Yes, sir. I said, hey, let's just go take a walk. And what that does, you know what? He got a break. It didn't hurt him. That's what he needed. Everybody said, well, you didn't give me a break. It doesn't matter. You didn't need a break. That's what he needed at that moment, at that time. And so he got that break, and guess what? He get to enjoy the rest of VBS, because if he had a went off, then we all know he had got removed. Mom might have took him home. He wouldn't have got to enjoy it. But because he got to be set aside, have a calm down break, and having a place, a lot of schools have now calm down corners. Having a place even within your club just to make room for that. Okay, is there a place? And usually there's multiple of us in there. Where in a classroom, it's harder to do that. But us, there's multiple ones of us that, hey, say, could you take Jane over there? I can tell she's really having a sensory overload right now. It's too much for her. Could you just take over in the corner and let her calm down? That's what she needs to do. And sometimes kiddos know this, like with fidgets and things like that, for a student with autism especially, if they have those things and if that's part of what's allowable for them in the regular school day, and maybe they'll tell you that, let you know that. Don't try to always take those things away. Try to find that stuff out, and because if that keeps them calm and lets them engage in what you're saying, because many times I was the kid at church that was in the pew. My daddy made me be quieter. He took me out and whooped me, but but I had cars and stuff like that, but I listened. I knew what was going on, and sometimes it's something in their hands that they're fidgeting with, that they're doing, but that helps them to focus on what's being said and done as well. So take those things into consideration as well. And that's why I talk about sensory breaks and a calm down area. And now it's not as going to be prevalent in a good news club as what you would see like in a classroom each and every day, where we have to have those things in place or you're not going to make it. But you mentioned headphones. Having headphones, different things like that helps children that have different types of special needs. So,
Can I say this?
yeah, absolutely.
So many people don't understand that these people, whatever kind of developmental disability they have, that sometimes their brain starts spiraling, and they can't get it, and it just starts spinning. And I have a son that has autism, and we thought that he was grandson, that he didn't talk till he's 5. But I'll tell you a little bit in a minute. But how he gets rid of that, he has to run through the house, and we just thought, let him. And finally, I talked his mother into taking him and getting him on some medicine, which he was a different kid because his brain wasn't firing all the time. But you can imagine if they're doing like this in their brain, they're having to run to get that energy calmed down. It's pitiful. But he has since then, he talks, I prayed, Lord have mercy, and by the time he was 5, went to first grade, kindergarten. But now he's 8. He can't get him talk. But he jumped from the 2nd grade. They put him in 3rd grade. He was in there for 2 weeks, and he got all 5 days of work done in one day, and he was bored. They put him in the 4th grade, and he's smart as a tack. But he's still got some. They're still trying to figure out what spectrum he's on. Psychiatrists are, but he's got to be on the higher end. Boy, we suffered for 5 years.
I bet.
praying.
I
And I
bet.
can understand all that, and working in Orange Grove as many years as I did.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I will say this, and I'll shut up. But if you ever have a person, or if you work in developmental disabilities, go to Orange Grove. The director there, or the chief executive officer, is my friend Tara. Ask her to let you have just a run through that building and see what they've got there for those kids. Because they were number one in the United States, have the best center for children with
Mhm.
developmental disabilities. I think now there's another one. But it is phenomenal of what this community has put in the money. Those kids have sensory deprivation issues and stuff. I'm sorry.
No, ma'am. No, ma'am. I want participation. So I'm actually wrapping it up. So go ahead.
Something that, I have a son who's 22, and he, growing up, we homeschooled, and so growing up, he was just always, he could sit down, but he had to have something. He had to be doing something, and so like when the fidget toys come out, those were awesome,
Yeah.
but we had a situation where we were actually in a church, like you were saying, when he was younger, and he had to have something, to either be playing with or something to be moving something.
Yeah.
But he could tell you everything that was said.
Yes.
He sung along with the songs. He did everything. And so many people told us, that's not right for him to be playing with that when he's sitting in church. And I'm like, no, ask him what the sermon was about today. I bet he can tell you more than you could.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
I homeschooled my kids when they were little too. And part of the reason we didn't send them to school is because I identified them pretty early on.
Mm-hmm.
And one time he told me little, he said, "Mom, you want me to look at you or listen to you?" So you got to realize that eye contact is we're experiencing that is not something like
Yes.
people think they're not being respected
Yes.
or whatever when you don't think not what it is at all.
Especially a kiddo with autism. Eye contact is almost impossible. And yeah, of course, and if you go in other cultures, it's shameful to look somebody directly in the eye, like Korean culture, Asian cultures. So we got to take things like that in consideration. And one last piece of advice I would give anybody working in education: some of us use sarcasm and with each other and stuff, and it's funny. But when it's with children, especially, and it doesn't matter if it's a child with a disability or not. But elementary children do not use sarcasm. They do not understand sarcasm. And so when you use sarcasm with a child, you are creating a victim. So don't do it. It's just, and I've had teachers that's very sarcastic and do it. And I said, don't do that to that child. You said that to that child and you thought it was funny, but they didn't understand and they took it literally and you just hurt that child. And so always remember that, especially students with disabilities for sure usually don't understand sarcasm, but developmentally, the brains of an elementary school child, they do not get it. Now, does that mean all? No, because there's all kinds of kids with all kinds of mental abilities that can understand certain things or not. But overall, developmentally, they just don't understand it. So I'll keep that out of it as well. You're creating a victim when we do that, and we don't want to do that. I put my email up there if you want to write that. That's JRLINDS2007 at Gmail. If you have any questions or I can help you anyway with what you're doing, I'd be glad to do that. Is there any other questions or comments for me? Yeah. Your little papers, the anagram, you can either throw it in the waste basket over there or you can put it up here on that table and I'll take care of it for you. But hey, I appreciate your time, you guys being here with us today, and thank you.